Hello, RA out there. This is Mark with Redo Over, and we are back to part 5 of our introduction to Mutu, Master of Orion 2. This is an old game from Microprose back in 96, 97. You can find this on Steam now. You used to have to, go onto like DocSbox or, different, abandonware sites. But now you can get it on Steam. It's very cheap. I highly recommend it. If you're looking for a 4X game, sci-fi based, that you can get in a night and 4 to 8 hours, play through a whole playthrough, but that each time you're going to be able to play it again, different classes, try different things, and improve your skills. It's a game that many of us have been playing literally for 30 years now, so I can't recommend it enough. And I don't know what the price on Steam is, but it's a game you can probably get on sale for $4, $6. Absolutely a must. It's widely considered to be one of the greatest 4X games of all time, space strategy game, so it'll be well worth it. But this is the final part of our intro series. The intro series is just meant for people who want to watch through and learn how to get the game set up to play and a little bit of stuff, and we're going to get into real gameplay. I'm also going to mix shorts on all these different special abilities, technologies. I'm going to really get into that over the course of probably the next half year as we play through some game scenarios with some different species in the game, maybe even make our own custom class at some point. People really seem to like watching the Master of Orion playthrough stuff, though, so we'll be doing a bit of that. But today, we've already covered our big 5 mechanics within the game. We covered the systems of government down here, which you must choose one of, which is why it was a key feature. It got its own video. Today, we're just going to rapidly run through this tall list here. Try and keep this video to, say, less than 30 minutes. And these will be covered in more detail, again, probably through shorts, maybe individual videos. I don't know. I have so much fun talking about Mutu, though. Thought about it my whole damn life. Here we go. Low grav. All right, so essentially, this is going to be, you have low gravity, normal gravity, high gravity. So if you choose a low gravity species, you're going to be a little bit weaker for ground combat, and it means you're going to be at a disadvantage on your normal and your normal and high gravity worlds out there. Conversely, you could use high gravity. If you choose high gravity, it means that you will, and you can always pause and read the tablet, the little window I've opened up. I'm right clicking on these to get these to come up, but you can pause and read this. I'll leave each one up for a few seconds, but it means you're going to be better at ground combat, and it means that you won't have a detriment when you're on your normal gravity or your heavy gravity worlds. I think on a low gravity world it halves. Let me see. Usually exclusive. Well, ultimately, high gravity world is a benefit. Low gravity world is a detriment because of if you start with low gravity, it means that normal worlds, which are in high gravity worlds, which are probably going to comprise about 70% of the worlds out there, are going to be very detrimental to you. Whereas you choose high gravity, kind of means you're immune to gravity, I guess. You do well in all the gravities. That's what it means. Okay, let's get to Aquatic. Aquatic is interesting. Terran is your standard world. It means that you can farm there. It means there aren't real detriments to the environment so much. But there are some off-Terran worlds, such as ocean, tundra, swamp. These are places where food is possible, but when you choose Aquatic, it's essentially saying that you can treat tundra and swamp worlds as Terran, and ocean and Terran worlds as Gaia environments, both for food and max population production. Now, eventually, you gain the technology to terraform a world to a Gaia level, potentially. So you can take a barren or radiated world and take them all the way up using equipment such as planetary radiation shields and terraforming technology and Gaia transformation technology, so that this is really useful more at the start of the game, because more of the worlds are more habitable to you for food production, population growth. So that's what that means. Jumping back into the gravity, eventually you can gain the technology called gravity generators, which turns all gravity worlds to a normal type relative to you. So you can overcome gravity with technology eventually. You can overcome Gaia class, Terran, Tundra, Ocean worlds, and get them all to Gaia class with technology eventually as well. Let's jump to Subterranean. Subterranean is a unique one because there's no way to replace what Subterranean gives you. It's actually one of the most powerful picks you can possibly get. What it means is that you live above ground and below ground. And as a result, it makes you better at ground combat when you're defending your homeworlds because you live in tunnels. It also treats the maximum population of all worlds that it's doubled. Your world size class is doubled. Early on and even later, this is good. This is a good pick throughout. It doesn't double the population across everything though, because eventually you get advanced city planners, you get biospheres. Those are technologies that increase how many pops you can squeeze on a planet. Those numbers are not doubled. So this really has to do with tiny, small, medium, large, huge. Those categories, that part gets doubled. But whether you live on a Terran world or a Radio world or a Gaia world, that gives you a little more population, but that part's not double. So this really just doubles the size portion of it. So you have technologies increase how many pops you can put on a planet. Size increases how many pops you can put on a planet, which this doubles. And the habitability class of a planet, that's your barren, radiated, Gaia, whatever, that increases the population. So 3 factors determine how many people you can squeeze onto a planet, but Subterranean is the only one that doubles that size metric. There's no other way to replace this, so this is a key one. If you're ever making a custom species and you take this, it's going to help you early on, and it's going to help you through mid-game and late game. It always helps. It's a great one. For 6, large homeworld, this is really, if you just have one pick point left, all it means is that instead of a medium set category world, you have a large category world. Early on, it's not a bad thing because it just means you can squeeze more excuse me, pops on your home world to start with. But it becomes irrelevant very early in the game. So is it a benefit early on? Yes. For 1 point, questionable. Sure. If you have a point left over, spend it. But it's going to become irrelevant well before the mid game even starts. Okay? Rich homeworld. This is very much like large homeworld. Although, to be honest, this one is useful well into the mid game. It just means instead of your workers producing 3, they produce 5 on your starting homeworld. Because your starting homeworld through the mid game is going to be your most developed and powerful planet, this is kind of useful well into it. But to be quite honest, that's for 2 points, 2 picks. For 3 picks, you could just get +1 production for every producer on any planet you have. So in that sense, would you take Rich Homeworld? Not really. I would just go for +1 production for 3 pick points. Okay. Poor Homeworld. Whew. For only a -1, this is a big detriment. Here's Poor Homeworld. You only produce 2 instead of 3 on your home world. This is just a black eye. You're just punching yourself in the face here if you take this. And it's only for -1 pick. I wouldn't do this under any condition unless you're trying to do an extreme challenge for yourself. This really is going to hurt you. This is really going to hurt you. Again, this is kind of like if you went in here and you took -1 to production on all of your on all your planets for -3. At least here you're getting a -3 to it though, right? So it's at least worth more points. But you mess with your production, you are hamstringing your entire empire. It really is not advisable. But you could overcome this by the time you reach the late early mid game. You could overcome that production deficit, and it's only on your home world. Finally, artifact world. This falls in just your home world. Artifact world means that all the researchers on your home world get 2 extra research. Every scientist gets 2 extra research. This is actually a pretty good one. If you're trying to do a science rush, it really helps jumpstart. However, I will point out it is for a big hefty +3. Well, guess what? Over here for +3, you can just get a +1 to research on all your scientists. The only reason you'd ever choose this is if you're going to double up. You're going to take both. You're going to take +2 for your researchers and an artifact homeworld, and you're going to go democracy. You're taking all the science you can get, and maybe creative. Let's see, could you do it? Could you creative? No, you can't get all of them. Democracy at 7, creative at 8, research at 6, artifact Homeworld at 3. No, in all cases, I would not take Artifact Homeworld. I would spend the +3 on a +1 research if you want that. So these 4 of them here, Large Homeworld, Rich Homeworld, Poor Homeworld, Artifact Homeworld, I wouldn't mess with any of those. It's just the least bang for your pick points, to be really quite honest. Let's keep going. Cybernetic. This is an interesting one. If you can work it into a build pretty nicely. It has a couple features. First of all, it gives you the ability to repair your ships outside of a starbase immediately. So your ships can be out there at another planet fighting. They survive combat, or they're between combats, or traveling to another system. Every turn, you can repair that ship. And so you don't need to send your fleets back to get repaired. You can overcome that eventually, or you can gain that ability by getting automated repair units through technology. But early on, it can be somewhat useful. The really thing that's useful about it, though, is that you only eat half of the food. Your pops eat half a food each instead of a full food, and it's replaced by production. So does that bite into your production a little bit? It does, but it means you need to rely on farmers a lot less because you're only using half the total food in your entire empire. Farmers are kind of the least useful pop to have. But eventually you get so good at farming, that's kind of offset as well. So, is it good? I don't really mess with it too much. I don't do a lot with Cybernetic, to be really honest. I don't find it that useful. But for 4 picks, it's not that bad. Here's a big one. Here's a King Daddy. Lithovore for a monstrous 10. Lithovore means you eat rocks. Not your production, just for free rocks on the planet. So you don't need any farmers. You don't use farmers. And you don't cut into your production. You sustain yourself on the free rocks on every planet. That also means that any type of planet you go to, whether it's irradiated, toxic, barren, Gaia, doesn't matter, your people can eat there from the start. So you don't need to worry about getting them fed or anything like that. It's very beneficial, and it essentially allows you to cut off farming completely from all of your calculations as you run your empire. That's why it's so valuable. Is you're just taking one of these big 5s and just exiting it off and saying, I don't need to worry about that. I'm going to focus on industry, science, population growth, and money. You get a lot more bang for all those. You get a lot more out of those other 4 than you do out of corn. It's like, I have more corn. You don't need corn. It's a big one. You can definitely build a custom species around that. However, it does take up half of your 20 total. Remember, you only get 20 positive points. You have 10 basic picks. You can take up to -10 picks, giving you a total of 20 positive picks. So that's taking half of them right there. It's a big get. Let's jump over to Repulsive. Repulsive is interesting. Essentially says other species don't want to deal with you very much. It is a big detriment, like a 50% reduction on any diplomacy stuff you try and do. What some people don't realize, though, is that it means legendary officers that try and join you ask for 50% more of their cost, and what most people don't realize, and I've noticed this, you get less good legendary leader picks. It doesn't say it here, but 100% it's true. There are incredible leaders out there in the game, but if you're repulsive, they will not offer themselves. You can't get them. There's no way to get them. There's no technology to work around this. If you always sit there and say, for -6 points, I'm going to take repulsive every time. I want to fight and do other cool stuff. I'm not going to do diplomacy. I'm always going to be repulsive. You play that way for like the first, 10 matches, and then one day you don't pick repulsive, and you see the amazing leaders that come to try and join you, and you're like, holy shit, where'd these guys come from? The reason you didn't see them is because you were repulsive. They don't say that, but that is definitely something that happens in the game. Finally, other races assimilate at half their normal rate. So it takes a lot longer to assimilate other races because you're hideous. They don't want to be part of your thing. So that's not great, but it's not that big of a deal. Okay, keep going. Charismatic. Charismatic's kind of the opposite of repulsive. It means that it doubles the effect of good diplomatic actions and halves the cost of negative ones. It means anything you do diplomatically is much more likely to work. You can honestly kind of like make an entire species around being charismatic and win through diplomacy, to be quite honest. You take this in telepathic, holy crud, you're really good at diplomacy. You can get trade deals, science deals. Almost everyone's going to accept everything you throw at them. Beyond which, charismatic races get legendary officers and leaders. They attract more of them, having the hiring cost and increasing the frequencies with which heroes asked to be hired. Plus, I believe you get the best of the best heroes, the most rare, obscure, legendary heroes. Many times you do a playthrough, you'll only see maybe 10 heroes come to you out of like 40 or 50 that are in a game. There's a bunch. There are heroes that you can play this game for a year of your life and you will not see them unless you take Charismatic. Some of the heroes are very rare and they're very powerful. So if you want to get into all those legendary heroes, you got to take Charismatic. Beyond which, doubles the rate at which conquered colonists assimilate into your empire. So that's a nice touch. For 3, Charismatic's not bad. And there's a lot. If you break that diplomacy mechanic, Charismatic is the way to do it. Coupled with Telepathic. Uncreative. This is a big detriment, but it's kind of a fun way to play sometimes. With each technology branch, you usually get anywhere from 1 to 2, 3, or even 4 technologies to choose from. Usually it's 2 or 3, like the vast majority of the time. But what uncreative means is that, you randomly are assigned one of the 2 or 3 technologies out of each branch. You don't even get to choose. It's just saying, yeah, you don't get automated factories. You only get fighter bays or whatever the fudge. And you're like, oh, crap, I don't get any autofacts. You're like, nope, you don't. You either need to steal it or trade for it. That's it. Or you don't get it. So it's a cool way to play because that RNGesus feature means you can't count on any technology. You don't know what you're going to get. And in that sense, it's kind of it's one of the more fun ultra hard ways to play where you're making it more challenging for yourself because you're just having to piece together what you get. You can't count on it. You don't get to predetermine or anticipate what you're going to have access to. So in that sense, it's a fun one to choose for -4. I honestly think it should probably be like a -5 or 6 personally, but yeah, whatever. I would stay away from uncreative though if you're new to the game because you're simply not going to see all the technologies. You really need to see and understand the technologies if you're a new player. So I wouldn't mess with that if you're a new player at all. Creative is the opposite of uncreative. It's a big 8. What this means is that in each field, I was telling you, there's 1, 2, 3, or up to 4 technologies in each field, usually 2 or 3. But when you take creative, instead of choosing one, you get all of them. You say, I'm going to research mega chemistry. You get all the technologies in mega chemistry for the cost of only one of them. It's a huge boon. It may be the most broken possible thing you could choose in the game. Maybe. It's that powerful. Because it's essentially doubling or tripling the effective technologies you gain for the same amount as what everyone else is doing. Doubling or tripling. Yeah, it's a big one. Take it if you want to win, or if you're doing anything built around science, take it. And you're going to do really good. You're going to do really good. Good new pick. Here we go. Here's another mega pick, Tolerant. In a big, massive 10 picks. This is like Lithovore. These typical... let's see here. What this means is that you are incredibly durable. Your species is almost unkillable in that sense. You are tolerant to environmental things. All planets in environments such as radiated, toxic, barren, you just treat as Terran for calculations of maximum population. Now, it doesn't mean a radiated world may still cost more in maintenance because it's destroying your buildings. Your buildings aren't you, but it's just saying for you personally, you're like, yeah, for us, we're tolerant. It's all golden. It's all good. We consider all of it equally good. So it means you're going to get more populations per planet is what that means. Tolerant races also ignore pollution. You don't need to clean it up. You don't even need to research the technologies to clean up pollutions. You don't need a pollution processor ever because you don't care about it. You just walk through the muck in life and you're happy for it. So you're getting multiple bonuses. You're not only getting more population in general through the early mid game. That's useful. Late game, that one's not so useful. Pollution, early, mid game, you completely ignore all pollution. Late game, you can mitigate pollution with things like a deep core waste dump, but that's like way late in the game. But it's saving you a lot of money, a lot of maintenance, a lot of building when you don't have to worry about pollution. And this just talks about mixing stuff. But yeah, so it's 2 benefits in one. Um, hostile planets and pollution have really no effect on you. Is it worth 10? I don't think so. I don't build Tolerant into a lot of my... I don't mess with Tolerant that much. Because pollution just... It is a big deal. It's pollution is essentially a tax on your industry for all intents and purposes. It drains your industry away. But honestly, you usually need to be getting food and science. So it's not like you're dumping all your pops into production anyway. I usually kind of ignore all pollution processing buildings because I don't want to pay the maintenance. I don't want to take time to build them. But I just keep my production at a small enough level, dumping more into science or food production with my pops so that I'm not losing that much to pollution waste. So you kind of work it out. Yeah. All right, let's keep going. So yeah, Tolerance questionable. You could, maybe there's some gimmick builds you could do with it, but I don't mess with it that much. Fantastic Traders at a 4. This is a nice pick. It doesn't cost too much, but essentially it says that you get 25% bonus from any trade treaties to your BC production, your money production. You receive a full +1 BC on all surplus food. Normally, you get a half of a BC per surplus food. This just essentially doubles it. But you're always getting something for your surplus food, but this just makes it more. This is actually fun if you're ever going to mess with the farmer build just because you want to be silly and I'm going to make all the food I can. That's cool. You're going to want to take Fantastic Traders if you do that, though, because essentially it's going to effectively give you a massive bonus to your BC production without having to take any money modifiers. And then finally, you receive 100% bonus to the amount of money you receive from building trade goods. So this essentially, if you take Fantastic Traders, it takes care of all your money needs. Just, you don't need to mess with money down here. You just have money. Although if you double those up, if you dip into money and you take this, you'll have a fudge ton of money. Just saying. Just saying. Telepathic. This is one of the more broken ones. I love it. Love Telepathic. At a +6, it's a steal, to be quite honest. Here's what you're going to get for it. You get a +25% gain to any diplomatic bonuses when you're conducting diplomatic negotiations. If you're going to be a negotiator culture, take this. You stack this with Charismatic, it's good. Everyone's going to agree to everything you offer. You're wheedling in their mind, finding out what they want, maybe brainwashing them a little bit. I don't know. It's great. But there's more. Telepaths can also use their mental abilities of mind control. Their fleets with at least a cruiser or larger. Is there a cruiser? I don't think it's a cruiser. I think it's a battleship or larger. Battleship, Titan, Doomstar, which you can't get right away in the game, but you'll get to by early mid-game. You're going to have one of these in your fleet. You can mind control a planet instead of bombarding or invading it. This means you don't need Marines. This means you don't have to worry about combat. This means that when you're invading and conquering a planet, you don't have to worry about damaging the pops or the buildings or the Marines. You get all of it. You get the planet whole, the flip of a switch. So all you need is one battleship to survive the combats. So say you send in like 10 frigates and a battleship, you win the fight, you get the world. The whole world's yours with everyone instantly. There's no assimilation. There's no destruction. So if you make a breakthrough on an enemy, like say you go after the weakest alien species, you're going to pick them off first because they are adjacent to your territory. You go in there and you just pluck planet after planet every turn. You can literally send out like 2 fleets if they're weak enough and get 2 new planets in a single turn, completely in your empire. So your empire, like as your graph is growing, right? You're trying to grow your power level. You can just do this, right? Nearly, it's not exponential, but as you whittle away at that enemy by picking off their weakest planets first, then you get their medium planets, then you get their capital and their major planets, and so you might gain like 3 population, 5 population, 8, 12, 18. You just whoosh. And within 3 or 4 turns, as you collapse a weak empire, you've absorbed them. It's your empire plus their empire, and now it's all your empire. Total assimilation. You have all their buildings. You have all their planets, you have all their pops. Just within 3 or 4 turns, you can collapse an enemy completely if they weren't a threat to you, if they were weak to start with. Now, where you maybe had some near peers or you had some superior guys, you've now just eaten another empire and you're here. You do that to the next empire, Now you're here. And as you eat bigger, more powerful empires, you're just growing your empire by bigger and bigger chunks. So in that sense, it is near exponential power curve. You got to survive long enough to get a battleship, and you have to have at least one enemy species weak enough for you to conquer. But once you get that telepathic domination rolling, it's game over. It's game over. I put in a lot of time into this one. Sorry, I should probably go a little quicker. And then the other thing, they assimilate instantly. Oh, and then you get a spy bonus because you're telepathic. So it's massive, really good stuff. Lucky is interesting. It just means random events are more likely to have good ones happen to you, less likely for bad ones, and the Interrans are less likely to attack you and attack others. It's a nice touch. It's very random, though, so it's kind of hard to quantify. It doesn't hurt anything, but you can't really make a build around it, to be honest. Omniscient. This is an interesting one. For 3 points, it means that at the start of the game and through the entire game, you can see all planets, all fleets, all monsters, all the time. You're omniscient. You just see your whole galaxy as it is, as it exists. Stealth doesn't matter. You just and this is a fun one if you're trying to do a playthrough series, like you're going to shoot videos like me, and you for your YouTube channel. Whatever your custom species build is, choose Omniscient, and that way you have total tactical mastery, and you can be explaining what's going on, and you can forewarn other people, like your viewers will say, oh, this is going to happen. You see they're building up here. Or, ooh, these guys, the red guys are conquering the yellow guys. That's going to become a problem for us soon. Or, oh, here's the planet Orion. Let's race to that. We're going to work towards that as opposed to working somewhere else. So in that sense, it's a huge buff. It just gives you a massive tactical advantage as the player. It's not an advantage for your species in the digits. It's an advantage for you, the human player, because you have a god's eye view of your galaxy. Super cool. Stealthy ships. This just means you can hide your fleets from enemies. I don't mess with that so much. And there are technical workarounds eventually that will break your stealthiness, I think, to some degree. There's a high-level technology late game, so I don't mess with it too much. It's not that useful. Maybe if you're playing a co-op game, it would really F with other human players. Oh, they'd be so pissed if you just stealthed your fleet up and attacked them, and they're like, ah. So that's probably where it's best suited. Transdimensional. Not worth 5 picks. I have no clue what this is doing here. It just means that your ships move faster as they travel through the galaxy, but they could always move. They just move faster. And in combat, they just move faster. They could always move, they move faster. If this was 3 pick points, maybe. At 2, I think it would be worth it. If this was a 2 pick point, I would be like, yeah, I'll expand faster. It has no functional use. The thing that holding up your expansion in the galaxy is not the fact that your ships are too slow, folks. For 5 points, it is a joke of everything we've talked about on here. There are detrimental picks that make more sense to pick for the negative points than to pick this for 5 points. It is worthless. Finally, Warlord. Interesting one. You can do a build around Warlord, but you got to be very careful with how you do it. Warlord essentially for 4 picks means that your fleets come in at a higher experience level. They can essentially reach the ultra elite. Just means your ships are a little bit more functional in combat, given parity otherwise. It's training of your personnel. It's not bad. Doubles the rate at which Marines and tanks are built and allows you to support twice the normal amount of Marines in tanks. Cool, but ground combat, again, isn't that useful in the game. Here's the real one. Here's the real big part that if you work it, you don't need this, but if you work it right, each colony produces 2 command points. Command points kind of dictate how many ships your fleet can support. Usually it's based off of not your colonies, but your one of the technologies in your battle stations, your star bases, battle stations, all that stuff. This just says, no, each colony, each flat-out colony you have, if it's just a barren moon with nothing else, but you have a population on there, you get 2 more command points. So if you're playing aggressive Warlord, conquering, spreading fast, your command point overhead is going to go way up. So, yeah, That one's hard to use, but there are things you can do with it. That's it. That's 30 minutes. If you watched, thank you. Take care.